At this time, it is 6:32, and I will hereby call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the Sunderland Selectboard. Our first order of business today will be to approve the minutes from our Selectboard meeting on 3/24/2025.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from March 24th, 2025.
All right, we have a motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, 3-0. Thank you very much. Alrighty, our first order of new business is going to be to review the budget updated for year 26 revenue and expenses. Pull that up here. All right, do you want to start revenue side or expense side?
Let's start with expense side.
All right.
We can, on the expense side, it's on page 2, 3, and 4. In that sheet. Is everyone?
Okay. Oh, I see.
This one.
That's your one. That's right, this one.
Oh, okay. Oh, there's another one right there.
Oh, all right.
A new one. Yes. Yes. We got the SharePoint open, thank goodness. I was gonna have to email you. Okay, everyone's found the latest round of the budget. Okay, so,
Can I ask you a quick clarification question?
yes,
I
please
just,
do.
I think I missed the last town meeting. I just want to make sure this is what town meeting will see, right?
No,
Or they see
they're
a
gonna,
more simplified version, that's,
Right.
right? Okay.
right, they
So
will
all the
see
departments, but not the parts of each budget.
salary expenses for each
I
department.
was thinking it was a little too detailed for how I remember town meeting.
Right.
Thank you.
That'll be ready hopefully at the end of the week too. There've been so many changes, it wasn't just an automatic
Yeah.
feed to the other format. All right, so at this point, I think everyone's been through the budget one time, but the changes, I had the luxury of having Margaret come back and just go through the budget for me. For those of you who don't know, Margaret was the interim town administrator, and she has a very meticulous focus on budget. So I did ask her to go through and check my formulas, make sure there wasn't a glaring omission, this being my first time working with this and having made a lot of changes from what was prior. I felt that was important. The only issue she found was the fuel line under highway had disappeared. And so the fuel line is in the highway department. You'll see it, it's the third to the bottom row. So I put the fuel line back in at the requested $18,000. This budget is important because all the fuel bills do go to the highway department, and then all the fuel is delivered basically to the safety complex where the highway is next door, and goes into a tank where there's an electronic calculator, so whenever the different departments take, fuel up, it calculates how much each department's using.
So what number is it in the sheet?
18,000, it's number 159.
Oh, we're missing a page.
Ah, we're
I
missing a
wondered what
page.
was going on.
Yeah. We jumped from 97 to 197.
Oh my God, I did it, it didn't do double-sided. Okay, if you'll excuse me, just go print your missing sheet.
Thank you. I wondered why we couldn't find it.
I thought maybe it was me being the new person who I wasn't saying anything.
Don't ever hesitate.
I was gonna wait a minute.
Two-sided.
So clearly I'm the arrogant person who's like, you know.
You're just the
I'm
experience.
just gonna
person.
default to the most experienced.
Experience person.
This is kind of some of both me. I live in the world of 18 to 20-year-old 2-year-olds, so it's really rare when I'm not the smartest person in the room, so it's odd.
They come to me to fill out their first paperwork when we hire undergraduates. And it's amazing what they know and don't know. So then I go home to my kids and I'm like, you need to know, answer your emails. Leave your phone number when you make a call.
Answer
They
your
don't know.
emails. That's the most important advice you can give anybody.
Oh, every day
Can I put that on the news? Most important thing, kid going off to college, answer your emails. That's the most important advice.
But you can start figuring out emails because they get emailed so much. And so I'm like, what did you get emailed? What's that? What are you doing? Did you check it out? Did you get it?
I just did Admitted Students Day on Saturday at UMass, and that's the advice we gave the whole room at the end. The one thing to remember, whether you come here or not, answer your college emails.
Did you do Destination Day 2 on, wasn't it Sunday?
The Admitted Students is Saturday. I did only do Saturday. I don't know if they
Right,
also had
Destination
stuff.
Day is Sunday, right? That's the, isn't that the second one?
There's early admitted students day, and then regular admitted students
Okay.
day. And I didn't do the first one because I was at the top of the second one, I think. It's usually the bigger one, is the early decision people haven't done that many places, so they're pretty much UMass or not. And then the later ones, they're more trying to decide between UMass and Rutgers and UMass and UConn or UMass and UNH, you know, private versus public, you know. And they have a lot of good questions.
That's great.
Thank you. And there's one.
Thank you.
All right, let's try this again.
The 159 you said, the highway fuel line? Yeah,
Thank you.
okay.
Perfect.
Now, we don't have historic data on that. Is that because that line item has never been there and was rolled in elsewhere, or do we just not know the historic on that?
I think if I look back, I'll be able to get it back in.
Okay.
I do know it was 17, well, that shows, but it's not gone up more than $500 a year. It's,
Okay.
Fuel is the only thing that's going up right now, so
at the moment,
that's not always true.
right.
Give it a week.
And what?
Yeah, exactly. So that's an increase from our last discussion of the 18,000, right?
Correct.
Okay.
That's why I brought it up. And it's a little, you'll see that the fire department does not have a fuel line that you can visibly see, but all their expenses are in their expense line.
Okay.
They're all grouped together. The police does have a separate fuel line.
Yep, I see that. The police is at 15, and the highway is actually 8.
18, yeah.
Or 18, yeah. All right.
So that was one big change. And the other one, outside of what we discussed earlier, was the fire department had a $42,000 expense line, and they reduced that to 39.
Okay.
And
You said was 43?
it was 42.
42, okay, so,
Down to 39.
so down 3,000 there, okay.
Yes. And I want to also say that on the highway expenses, that the 20,000 I had taken out of there, it's become more and more of an issue as I've talked more with George. At this moment in time, I put back 7,500. There are a number of expenses that come out of this account that aren't really Chapter 70, like line striping.
90, yep.
I'm sorry, Chapter 90, like line striping. And some others. So he was concerned about not having any increase in that account because, as we've been talking since I started, almost everything he does, the costs are going up at least 20%. Some are doubling. So he was nervous about being cut short without anything. So that's up for debate by the board, but that's in here at the moment. And other than that, the other two changes that are in here were done prior to today. It was the select board met with recreation coordinator Jim Ewan and discussed the reseeding line, maintenance of the field line, and brought that back up to 9,000 from 6,000. He originally asked for 12, and then the select board asked him to really think what he could do. And he came back with that compromise of having it go to 9,000 instead of 12 this year. He will be putting together a CPC grant for next year for at least field maintenance. I don't know what else.
He's also going to be likely bringing a capital request as well for new equipment shed. Not the baseball shed, but the general equipment shed is falling apart, leaking, falling into, sinking into the ground, all kinds of things. And so we discussed it with him and made it clear that, you know, it's too late to ask for it for this year in the capital budget, but that for next year. And there also was some discussion, this is kind of aside, but there was some discussion about possibly working with Franklin Tech. They have a construction department there that builds really nice sheds. In fact, they built them to like house code because of teaching their kids how to build to house code. So you get like, you know, high quality stuff for basically much better prices. And it would be a good opportunity for us to both work with the school, give them an opportunity to build something, and have that partnership between the town and the school just strengthen it a little bit. So those are all things that aren't on our docket for this year, but coming up next year, we will be expecting to see that.
I have a question about that. Can CPA funds be used for that? Because it's recreation?
I believe
So it shouldn't be a
so.
capital request, it would be another CPA request.
It'll, I think it can fall under both buckets, but I don't want to say that without talking to a lawyer first. So
Yeah.
we'd have to be sure of that, but I think you're probably right that it can fall under CPA.
I'd also think of it like the CPA, I know there's a fine line between maintenance and capital, and seeding is like, you just gotta be careful. If you regrade and you're doing something, doing something significant, it could be a CPA, but I'm not sure just reseed the field qualifies.
Right.
Alone.
But for example, the Hatfield, when they did it, they called it rejuvenation,
Oh, all right,
We,
restoration.
okay,
yeah.
okay.
Can you hear?
Do you mind turning the volume up just a little bit if it will?
Yeah, that's what I
Especially because it'd be easy for us to just talk over her if we can't hear her.
Oh, that's all right. Usually I'm too loud, so.
Where is it?
Never too loud.
Do you know where the volume is on this thing?
I think we just turn the TV volume itself up. Is there?
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Is there?
Where it is the question. I think it might be on this side here.
Oh, sorry.
Remote, maybe?
On the side itself?
Oh, I think I found it.
There we
Yeah.
go, we got you.
Try again, Crystal.
Can you hear me better now?
No.
Not really.
It
Go to
doesn't do
the audio
anything.
settings, that little caret next to the audio microphone. If you click on that,
That's all already?
No, it's over here, right?
yeah, if you click on that little.
No,
caret-
not the Zoom one, but this little.
No, the Zoom one.
Oh, the Zoom one?
Yeah, because it's the TV's all the way up, so you can check the audio settings in the
Oh, yeah,
Zoom.
that's
Maybe
the little
that's
caret
not
right
all the way
here.
up.
It's just using the internal speakers.
Right, but it can't. You should be able to look at the. If you click on that, it doesn't allow you to look at the audio settings and see where the volume is internally to Zoom. To Zoom.
Audio settings here, yeah.
Oh no, it's all the way up too. No, it's test the speaker. It's
Go-
not
go-
all the way up.
That rest of the way up there. And then, yeah, there's three audios. There's the Zoom
Oh, yeah,
audio,
isn't
the
it fine?
computer audio, and the TV audio. TV audio is already up. Zoom audio is all the way up.
And the owl.
Crystal, can you say something again?
I can, any better?
A little
A
better.
little better?
Yeah, you're
I'm
good.
gonna just see if we can tweak this down here at all. Nope, that's already all the way up.
Yeah, I got
Well, that's as loud as it's gonna go, so good luck.
Loud enough.
All right, well, congratulations. You're not gonna have to listen to me as much today.
But we got you from both sides, so we'll be able to hear you.
Yep.
All right, so,
You can hear on TV, you can go home and watch it later.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, Jim, $9,000 is sort of the meet in the middle budget for that. And then his other requests are gonna be either CPA or capital for next year. And we did also discuss, both bringing back some sort of, committee, recreation committee, as well as, applying for things like CPA grants and whatnot. We did discuss that with him preliminary last week.
Okay.
All right,
Thank you.
any other changes on here we should be aware of?
Those are the major ones in expenses, so I
Okay,
think we're,
so our bottom line expense from last time will have gone up by 7,500 plus 18.
18,
18 for the fuel, 7,500 for the expenses for George, and then also the 3 extra thousand for the recreation budget as well.
and the recreation went up and fire went down.
And if I went down 3,000, okay, so that's,
Yeah,
so we're
that's
looking
a
at,
zero.
we're looking at 18 plus 7.5, so 25.5 is our increase from our last budget, okay. All right, and then on the revenue side,
Okay, so on our revenue side, if you look all the way down to the last box, the last white rectangle, and focus in on the 10,493,454. Okay, so that is the total of everything prior to that, all the levy and the local receipts and the state aid. Then we add in the Comcast PEG grant we received.
I'm sorry, which page is this on? This is the.
I'm sorry,
front
this
page?
is revenue, it was the front page. And they're stapled together, and it's in the
Yeah.
bottom box.
Yep.
So
Can
proposed
you give me a
FY
line number, please, Vicki, because I'm looking at it online and I don't have the same page break as you do.
Oh, okay. So the line number starts at 55, 55 through 65.
Gotcha, okay.
Okay, so we add in
Let's see if you wanted to, yeah.
the Comcast PEG access, and then the sewer reserve, which this year is 429,944. Then we add those all up, and we we put in, sorry, the very last line, the minus 350,615. That is our what we want to spend in capital this year. You'll find that matches this sheet with all the capital items listed on, and that's the spending. Way up in the on line.
Okay.
Line 11 or. between
Right after
numbers.
line 11, 420,121.88 is the new capital stabilization amount that the town can raise for an override upon vote of the select board. So we're adding that amount at the top, and then we take it back out in the last section. And when doing that, I found the difference between the two is $70,000. So that $70,000 needs to be transferred into cap stabilization. So I left that here to show you where it's going. It's going to be transferred into cap stabilization.
Okay. Makes sense.
Okay, and then I plugged the two, you see the free cash figure line 62 for $250,000. I plugged that in as was agreed to as we went through the numbers earlier. We used that $250,000 to try to balance the budget. Then we used the $50,000 of free cash for OPEB. And that left me with a hole that we are filling with the stabilization fund of $138,404.
Good question on this. I'm not seeing the $60,000 for the teacher buyback. Is that accounted for on here, or is that kind of just being handled separately?
It's being handled separately because it's not coming out of the budget,
Okay, gotcha.
because since it's not in the budget.
I saw the OPEB,
Right,
and I
right.
didn't see the other one, I just want to make sure I just. wanted
And
to
the
make
reason
sure.
I didn't put it in there, because if I had put it here and then a warrant article, it could have been doubled.
Gotcha, okay.
And we didn't want to take it out twice.
Nope, makes total sense.
So just to, if I can say this back to make sure I understand it, so the gap is about 320,000, which is up from 300 because of the couple of highway and other items we just talked about. And that 320 is paid for between the 250 free cash and then the net 70 roughly that's coming out of cap stabilization. Because
No.
140 is
No.
going in and 70 is coming out.
No, the only reason it's no is
That's right.
because the 70,000,
It's going into cap stabilization.
So
Right.
we have
40 is coming out.
We have two stabilization funds. We have cap stabilization and then general. Nothing's coming
Oh,
out of
sorry.
cap stabilization. So we're putting money into the cap stabilization because the way it's done is we appropriate that money.
I'm sorry,
and
I
then-
was just reading how these lined up. So,
Okay.
so the 140 is coming out of regular stabilization.
Yes,
And the 70 is going into cap stabilization.
yes. Because the 70 is the balance that's after what we spend
On cap.
between what we, yeah. So that kind of has to stay in that account because it's not appropriated for general use, it's for capital use.
Okay.
Yep.
So do we know what the balance of the capital stabilization fund will be? It will go up by 70 this year, right? Am I doing that math right? Which is,
Well-
our goal was to increase it over time because we have big stuff coming up.
So
And where is it going to start based on the transfer that we do?
the short
okay,
answer is we're going to be in a worse position than we wanted to be because of the snafu with the $409,000 last year. There are still a number of different scenarios in front of us for capital stabilization. In fact, we're going to be meeting tomorrow to kind of hash out the last of those. Ranging from we only put the very minimum we need in to get us to zero so that we aren't negative, to recuperating the entire 409. It's become very obvious that recuperating the entire 409 is not in the cards this year because of all the other stuff. And so the goal is to put enough in, plus to claw back some money in accounts that didn't get spent in the past to get us back to zero in that special town meeting before the regular town meeting, so that we have a clean slate. Then 420,000 will go in, 350 will go out, 70 will sit there, and now we have 70,000 sitting waiting for the future. It should be $270,000 in an
And
ideal
we're
world.
we're back to a clean slate plus
Yes.
70 with our planning.
Yes. We are also, and I talked to Becky about this earlier, we are also looking into whether or not we actually have to be at zero for that account. Because if we don't, we'd actually have a third option, which is we only put in enough to get us to negative $70,000 so that we take even less out of the accounts. And at the end of this year, we're at zero rather than being at 70,000. Now, the advantage of that is if we put it in capital stabilization, it's capital stabilization money from now on. You can never uncapital stabilize it. It's for capital only. We don't have any choices. General stabilization can be used for capital projects. It can be used for anything. So if we take less out of general stabilization, we're more fluid and able to deal with who knows what's going to happen in the next couple of years. Versus, I'd hate to find ourselves cutting positions 2 years from now because we don't have the money in general stabilization to cover something, and then sitting with this pile of capital stabilization money that we don't necessarily know what to do with at that time. If it's the other way around, we have options. We just don't if we put it in all.
So the decision to do that or not is the meeting tomorrow?
That plus we have to find out whether
can.
we can. I don't know whether we can close the books at the end of one fiscal year with an account at negative $70,000, or whether that causes more trouble or not. That's a whole other
Okay.
ball of wax. But assuming we get the okay from the lawyer or the accountant or whoever it is that does know the answer to those questions, or DOR or whoever, that will be an option that's on the table. So again, I don't love making us capital poor, but the choice between capital poor or general stabilization poor is,
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Flexibility is good.
Flexibility is good, exactly, because we can always transfer $70,000 back in next year, but we can't reverse it. So to that end, and I feel like I had a piece of paper.
yes, there's a piece of paper where it attempted to figure out balances on different accounts.
That's this one.
Yep. So, just to run through this, our starting free cash is $622.5. We're looking, as it currently stands, to put $250 of that into the operating budget. 50,000 of that into OPEB, 60,000 of that into sick buyback, which is a total of $360,000 coming out of free cash, leaving us with $262,500. The recommended cash reserves are 3 to 5%. 3% is 290, 5% is 484. So we would be just south of 3% on that. So is it a little less than we'd like? Sure. Is this the year that's going to happen? Also, yes. Next up for stabilization, this is general stabilization. We're starting with 575, 699, and we'll be looking to move 186 into the capital stabilization, and that's assuming we go to zero. And that's based currently on the numbers that we've run for what we can recuperate from accounts, and this is getting us back to zero. That number, if it were to change because we find out we can do something, shouldn't affect any of the other calculations. It would just, that one line item would go down by $70,000. Below that is the transfer into the operating budget. So that 138,404 plus the 250 that we're putting in from free cash, that is the money that we're using to close the operating budget. So that's going to leave our stabilization account with a balance of 250,764. So between free cash and stabilization, we'll have a little over $500,000 of reserve type money there. Be clear, not reserve money, that's a different thing entirely, but reserve type money. Title 5 I'm going to kind of skip over unless anyone wants to talk about the $91 there. Beautiful. Capital stabilization, it's showing an opening balance of 219 currently. That is not actually the case, that's what should be there. But then going down, you see the 409, going in and going out. That going out is our mistake, basically. And then the capital budget from last year is the 405 change. Keep going down. We have a transfer in from the general stabilization. Below that is the override money. It's actually a little higher than that by
$121, sorry.
But close enough for what we're looking at here. And then going down further, we have the capital budget that we will be talking about in a little bit, somewhere over here, that has the expenditures for this year. All of that said and done should leave, and these numbers again are not based on reality currently. But anyway, so we're just going to ignore the bottom of that. And the OPEB, the Comcast OPEG, is that what it's called, OPEG? Looks like it's starting out at 103. 53 is going out. Is that correct? Yeah. And the closing balance on that will be 50,916. And then CPA funds, we currently have a little over $1 million, and it looks like the total for CPA.
I did not update the CPA for this year.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
So we'll
This is last year's, yeah.
okay. So we'll ignore that. And then the water treatment reserve, is that one accurate?
Yes.
Okay. Water treatment reserve has $1 million currently. Looks like the budget is 429, and that will leave them with 607,406. Now, a question on that. That account is not tied to appropriation. That's money goes in for fees and money goes out. So that's not something that we really even have access to, right? And
Correct.
nor should we be transferring money out of that because that's money that's there for her. Right. Just making sure. That's my assumption, but I see $1 million lying somewhere, and I'm going to ask a couple questions about it.
Yes, good idea.
All right. Anything else you want to add, or is that pretty much where we're at?
That's where we're at.
Okay.
Yes.
Any questions from finance or from select board on those numbers?
I have a question that may or may not be very relevant, but I'm kind of curious. I know there's been more and more kind of local cases where wells contamination in towns are responsible for the forever chemicals and blah, blah, blah. Can our sewer balance be used for that, for wells, or does it have to be just used for that in the sewer system?
I would be very surprised if it could, because by definition...
But it can be used for that in the system, just not in our...
If there was a contamination within the sewer system,
Yes,
probably.
but not in private wells.
Almost
So
by
we got-
definition, the people who have private wells are by definition not part of the sewer district.
Right, so if that happened in town and the town was partly responsible for that, that would be a whole nother hit.
Correct.
Yes,
Just wanted to make
yes.
sure.
And again, unless it was
Yeah.
within the sewer system itself.
Right.
But that would be even bigger of a problem, so let's not go there.
Yeah, that would be worse, but
That'd be weird.
one well would be bad, but
Yes, which is definitely
Many
something
wells
that's
would be
worth bringing up, because as,
With that right now.
yeah, exactly, we're dealing with that currently.
Jackie,
Yes, we have one,
we have
but,
a contaminated well in town, and we're still.
yeah, there's one, but it tested negative on the last test, which is great, but it's still an issue and a problem. Yeah.
But yeah, that's definitely a good question, because a small problem in that kind of a case can turn into a large problem really fast. And so we don't want to get, caught without any way of paying for that. My suspicion is if we came into a situation where find 5 more wells or something like that over the course of the year, that'd be something we could transfer money out of the reserve fund for. So, or if we
Our
absolutely
balance
had
is
to,
pretty low in reserve. It's only at $25,000. But if there's a small problem, we could address it with that.
and if it's not, then we have to have a special town meeting
Yeah.
and we transfer. Okay. Any other questions from finance on?
So what's been in our cash reserves, or what percentage of the operating budget now? About?
3? No.
Are you talking about post this or currently?
Post this, yeah, post, yeah. After we do all this, how much we left, what percent of our cash reserves?
So,
Our cash reserves are what percent of our overall operating budget?
so if you on the sheet that has the this sheet right here, kind of look at find out,
And
3% is 290, and we're leaving 262.5. So it says 3% here, but it's going to be 2.825 or something like that percent. So and the recommendation is between 3 and 5.
Right, yeah.
And most years we end up closer to the 5 mark at the end of the year. But there have been a couple of years where we're closer to the 3 end of it. So, but we're not, the recommendation is not 10% and we're coming in at 2 or something like that. We're still very much within that realm.
Mine is, WWTP is the wastewater treatment.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and
We have no debt service right now. Do we have any debt service?
no, that's the remarkable thing.
Yeah,
This year,
yeah.
the fire truck is paid off, so there is no debt service.
we do have
Coming into this
capital.
Well, other than the CPA one, which is.
Yeah, well, and we do have a capital debt, which is, that's part of the capital budget, which we'll go over in a little bit, includes payments on vehicles that
Lease
we've purchased.
payments.
But that's not debt,
Right.
town debt like that.
Okay.
Yep.
So we
And
have
we're very lucky in
three-
that respect.
We have 3 open leases that'll go for the next 3 years, 3 or 4 years.
Which does leave us in a good position where if we had to borrow for the roof of the school, because that's really the big iffy part about all of this with the capital budget, is they were trying to squirrel money away from the school. We'd be in a position where we don't have any debt currently, and we have a very reasonable story to explain of why we're in the position we're in. And really what it comes down to is, do we want, I'd rather have the risk of having to take on debt in a couple of years than, again, lay people off and make the town poor, in order to try to, anyways. Now, in years past, where we have landed around the $300,000 mark for free cash, that has, in years past, included moving some of that free cash into accounts. Like for example, moving a couple $100,000 into capital stabilization, a couple $100,000 into general stabilization, and that's because we've had a couple of years where we've had a real surplus there. So this, we were landing in a similar position, but without being able to squirrel money into accounts that we would have normally done so, just for overall town financial health reasons. Crystal, do you have anything you wanted to ask? All right. Excellent. Anything from the finance committee before we continue on? Cool. All right, so we're going to switch from budget stuff over to the warrant article, the draft of the warrant article. And so we have 2 in front of us. One is motions and the other is the warrant article.
I gave away my motions.
That was motions there. Yep.
And I'll work with the Heather and the WTP to to fill in the numbers here in Article 3. Article 4 is the capital stabilization override article, And the figure from the list of capital items will go into article number 4.
Okay.
So that's 350615, that number?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a $3,000 correction from what was in, I think it was on the revenues that I'll have to correct.
It looks like Article 6 is a CPA transfer.
I'm sorry, what was Article 5? Did you just have?
No, I hadn't said anything yet. Article, that's okay.
Certain bills, excuse me.
You're making sure it go the right
That's
way.
prior year bills.
So if we come, I left this open, this is, we're gonna use this for the 13,500 for the audit, but we're not using that anymore, but she left it in case, in review with Mel, I find that we still have something outstanding, which I think we might have.
So that's the one we already voted on.
Well, we
Right, or
changed
it's just
it.
filled in?
Now we're changing it.
Okay, so now
Yeah.
we need to re-vote on that, so I should.
Yeah. I think there's a, Kearsarge is claiming that we owe them like $4,500 for the April through June time period last year. But they sent a bill, billed us, we paid it, and then then they said they made an error and recalculated something and came up with another $4,500. And so we've been going back and forth arguing about that. We're hoping to win, but if we lose, we'll have to pay it. Okay, Article 6 is another CPA project. This one's for the, a transfer into the Conservation Trust for land acquisitions. And I think there's been some opportunities that have come up at different times, so Jen is asking for that. I mean,
Conservation.
Conservation Commission is, and the CPC put the article together
Okay.
and has already voted that.
It helps with matches and stuff like that.
Article number 7 is a blank at the moment. They're waiting for the results from the bids to come in. We had, the sub-filed bids came in today. We had 2 successfully, a third, came in after the deadline. So we will be putting that number in on next Monday when we get the final bids in at 10:30.
So the finance committee can't recommend something, we don't know the number, so we just don't vote on it on Wednesday, and there's just no recommendation for the finance committee at the town meeting, is that how it works?
Do you have a number next month? Are you here next Monday?
Or do you meeting Wednesday?
Yeah,
They're meeting
next
this
Monday is not a
Wednesday.
joint meeting.
Or does it need to be another joint meeting if there's like we could get on with, I don't know, or do we not?
Would you, yeah, could you come to the meeting next Monday instead? I know we didn't want you to waste your time. So I think if you go through everything else but that,
We can
I'm so
also-
sorry, this got delayed a week.
We can also, if we do have you show up next meeting, we can make that the first order of business, get it done with, and then you guys can adjourn and leave, and then we can do the rest of our stuff.
It also do virtual, right?
You could zoom in, yeah, you could all zoom in too.
Yeah, we can zoom in.
Yeah, why don't we meet on Wednesday, do everything that we can,
Okay,
and then put whatever we can't do on the agenda for Monday night, we'll try to get a quorum to zoom in or be here on Monday.
And then-
okay,
and
so
worst-
I'll make it a joint meeting for the beginning and have you the first item.
But the other,
Yeah.
to sort of answer your original question, worst case scenario, I believe it can still go forward without your recommendation, it would just show up as not having been
Yeah,
recommended by the
exactly.
finance committee. So, that would not be ideal, but it
Then,
would
but
be.
then someone asks why you didn't, and then it's just whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Don't-
Could they technically vote like
It's in the
at town
bylaw
meeting and
that you
say,
have to
we just
recommend.
voted to recommend?
That's a good question, actually. Sorry, Crystal?
Yeah, we've had articles that we haven't voted on before.
Correct.
Yeah.
Any, so they're just blank under select board recommendations, so I don't know why, if it came right down to a finance committee can't have a blank. It would be nice to have a recommendation, but.
And you would also,
I think
Something
it-
happens where you can't get a quorum, leaving it blank, I don't think will be an issue.
and you will have the opportunity to be at town meetings, so if a member of the public is like, why is this blank? You say, oh, it's because the numbers came in after our last meeting, we didn't have an opportunity to. Don't take it as us not
It doesn't
endorsing
mean
it. It
anything.
doesn't mean anything, it just means we didn't get to it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about that, but if we can, that'd be great.
And I'll check the bylaw, it might be required by the bylaw. That's the only reason I can think of, but I haven't, I'll have to check.
Unless we can't get quorum, I mean, we can only just try.
Right,
I mean, even like the previous one, like, I don't have any objection to what is trying to be done in Article 6, but I don't know anything about it. Like, I don't think the finance committee is supposed to be part of that process of review by CPC and the select board, but then how are we supposed to recommend or not something that we're not really?
yeah, because you're required to recommend or not any financial issue, so it puts you in a position you don't have authority over it, but you have to learn about it.
Well, and for the short answer is, you always have the option of choosing to not recommend something, and not for any nefarious
abstain or
reasons, but
something from
to
recommending.
say that we're gonna choose to, our official stance on this is to not take a stance on it.
It's
As long-
004 or something.
Yeah,
No
as
ways,
long
no
as
means.
as long as you make a stance, even if that stance is that we're not making a stance, I
If we
believe
don't have enough
that's.
information, we can
that's all.
abstain.
Right,
I think on the CPC articles, it's also, you're just looking at whether the CPC is making a financially sound decision based on the money that they have. Like, they've decided to spend the money. I would think that the only way you would object is if you felt it was,
If they didn't have enough money, what were they thinking?
you're like wiping out the
Yeah,
account.
but I don't think our role is to make sure they don't have a negative balance in their account. Like, great, they're trying to opine in some respects on how they're spending the money or how much of it they're spending it.
Well,
I haven't heard about, I don't know if I was supposed to, but I hadn't heard about this before tonight. Now they problem with it. Like, this isn't about what they're trying to do, just trying to figure out the process, because everything is so late that there's a lot of things we don't know much about or have information on that.
Do we
don't
have access to the CPA minutes on the website?
Oh, and they're also meeting this week on Thursday.
yeah, no, they tried to do a Zoom meeting and it didn't work. When they discussed this, I was at the meeting where they brought up the 100,000 for land acquisition. And part of the reason, there's already a balance there, but there've been a number of occasions where, it's hard to turn around quickly. And to have to stop and arrange a special town meeting to be able to move ahead on an urgent, sensitive property.
And these aren't infrequent either. We have fairly regular, not necessarily yearly, but close to that, where a property comes available that the Community Preservation Commission wants to move on. So it's not like this is something where we're gonna just be sitting on this money for 10, 15 years. Likely within the next 2 or 3 years, we'd see another property available. So, but yes, I absolutely want you to know what you're voting on. So
Yeah.
share your concern. All right, so that was 7 we were talking about, right? All right, so number 8, this is also CP for Community Preservation Fund.
This is the one, there was 3 bids, 2 to 3 bids, depending on whether you take the third one or not.
That was 7.
That's just
Oh,
That's
that was
7. Yeah.
Oh, we're on 8 now? Sorry. Jumping ahead. Okay.
But, I'm sorry, going back to number 7, maybe what you could do is think through, how much money you would think is appropriate. Like, set a limit, I don't know.
I mean, and that one I have information because I'm on the library trustees.
Right.
So, and I can share with the finance committee what that's about, right? And we've already spent, it's already been kind of on list historically, but, the other one's just more vague. This is we need to fix this thing. Like, we all know what that thing is versus the other thing is vague. So I think that's where it's weirder for
Okay,
us.
right.
So Article 8, this is the housekeeping article for the CPC. So that's going to be $6,000 for their administrative expenses, $24,749.21 for community preservation debt service, and then a handful of reserve funds underneath. 23,000, 23,000, 23,000, and 132. Any questions on any of that?
Article 9 is a request from FERCog. They're making amendments to their charter. So they've asked that the town meeting, each of their towns vote the changes.
This has been brought to the select board's attention. We are aware of the wording of that and whatnot.
Okay.
What are the amendments or what are the changes?
Oh, something went
There's a
screwy.
missing paper that is up to here.
Okay, so we're going wrong. I was going the wrong way.
Wait, isn't this it? Is it this thing? Well,
No.
No?
No,
So
we're
what-
going
what-
back the other way, because that's just the signature page, actually.
Okay.
That's the end. This is, I'm not sure what happened here. So,
Okay, so
the
it's the
vote,
page, 2/3 vote according to FERCog chapter is the first words on the second page.
Charter, yep,
yeah,
that's right.
So that's the end of
Article 9.
9. And then at the beginning of Article 10.
It says vote to enact the amendments to FERCog. What are the amendments?
The amendments they put will be in the motion. Is it in the motion now?
They were basically doing a whole cleanup of their, I mean, I don't remember all the details, doing a cleanup of their charter from
It's just cleanup.
30 years ago, yeah, mostly.
Yeah, I can't tell you off the top of my head, but I remember looking through and being like, oh yeah, this all makes sense. This is all.
So it's all cleanup.
It
Yeah,
wasn't any
language.
giant
Oh my
changes.
God.
It was like, oh yeah, why was that written that way, kind of stuff.
We don't use horses to get to work anymore.
So
Yeah,
that,
we will make sure we get you that
That'll be in.
wording.
Yeah.
Before.
Yeah, if you share it before Wednesday,
Yep, we'll make sure we get that to you before then.
thank you.
You know, they're-
All right, so next one, Article 10. This is having to do with a.
Actually, do we need to vote on that one if it's not money?
Probably not.
Right? Can't we just be like, don't
yep,
vote on
you
that?
can skip it.
All right, never mind, we don't want that, we don't want to know anything about that.
Then I won't send you the boring information that you don't care about.
Okay, we're not.
Sounds
But I'm
we don't
gonna
have to
look
vote on
at it
that.
and see if they mention money in it at all. I don't think they do, but if they
I'll
do, I'll
review
send
it.
it to you.
I'm almost positive there was nothing monetary in there, but I will review it also. All right, so number 10, this is having to do with the Mass General Law having changed to allow towns to collect fees for short-term rentals, AKA, bed, what are the bed,
Airbnb.
Airbnb, there we go, thank you. Off the top of my tongue.
Yeah.
Basically, we have the option of charging a fee, and that's what we are doing here in accordance with that general law. So, is there any questions on that?
I mean, what would the fee,
I think it's,
who decides? Is it
it's-
4%, 2%?
The
It's not
state-
You
yeah,
can
the-
say do it or not do it.
Okay, so. you
yeah,
don't-
the state set up a system. The money is collected by the state and provided to the towns.
It's kind of like that dining one we did a few years back.
Do we know what it
Yeah.
is from Massachusetts? And from an
The
engineer?
percent?
Yeah.
I think it's
It
3%.
might come up, and someone might say,
Yep.
what am I gonna be paying, charging? It's 6, someone said?
I think it's.
No, it's no more than
No
6.
more than 6.
But it's set by the state, and right now we think it's 3, but it can't be more than 6.
Okay.
But we design onto the whole thing.
Yeah,
They
we
could
don't-
change it to 6 next year, we don't know.
Which is honestly kind of nice because we're not setting anything. We don't have to argue that, say, go talk to the state if you want it to be 2% versus 4% next year. That's not us.
Are there any other strings attached to signing up for this program?
No, just money in the bank.
Okay, and do we have any idea, I know it'd be an estimate, because we haven't done this yet, but like, what we think the 3% would be, like how many dollars might come back to us, or what range we're talking about?
We know it's gonna vary seasonally.
I didn't know if they have a way you can do some
Yeah.
sort of estimate, but.
It's tough to estimate. Just for example, a little town like Shutesbury collected 14,000 in the fall.
Okay.
And fall, I think, is one of the, which is,
Graduation is the other big
Yeah,
one.
graduation
yeah,
and move-in.
graduation's gonna be
We
huge.
know we're doing.
So,
Does not,
and sometimes it was 3,000.
Shutesbury's got Lake Wyola, so their short-term rentals are probably a lot more than we're gonna see.
Yeah, although we get graduation and move-in rentals that they probably don't. All the New Jersey
Moving
parents.
rentals aren't short-term.
No,
no, I mean, for like people coming for a
2
weekend.
weekends, parents' weekends, stuff like that.
But 2 weekends is not gonna make a bit much of
No.
money.
Yeah.
The short answer is it's not gonna be a pile of money, but it's gonna be some.
Yeah, and it might, it might be 3,000 a year, it might not be hardly anything. But it's money left on the table if we don't do it.
So I do have a question about this. So, does this put any change on the apartment complexes that have, apartments, like furnished apartments that they're renting for just a month for a short-term rental versus a yearly?
I can't say this for sure, but my understanding is that they're already in because they're already rentals. So we're trying to pull in rentals that aren't already being considered rentals into the tax
Right.
pool, whereas they're already being taxed at a different rate because they're already rentals. Exactly. So I don't believe that's the case. I certainly wouldn't hate hearing that from the state, though.
Right, but I think these are all the individual homeowners who are renting their properties, and they're all on the database. They're not, they're not the apartment complexes.
Where's the database coming? Because you have Airbnb, you get BY, VRBO, yeah, and how?
Well, I mean, those places all have to,
Report to the state.
right,
What
so
the state-
individuals.
The state's doing all the work and just passing it back.
Right,
Correct.
Yeah.
right.
It's just
Oh,
when it's not reported to the state, we wouldn't see it, but everything is reported to the state, we get.
Well, if you're using one of the big operators, you have to report it to the state now or you're gonna get in
Right.
trouble. That used to not be true, but now it's not true.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions on Article 10 before we move on? Wonderful.
and Article 11, was that Article 11? Yeah, that was 11,
No, that was 10.
That was 10.
11 is revolving
Oh.
funds.
sorry.
So this is the recreation fund. Oh, this is the fund that Jim asked for. So Jim also had asked for, he has an account that is revolving, but lots of money comes and goes in and out of it. And he asked to make his maintenance fund revolving so that money can go in and out of that, but it's much more clear that this is maintenance money coming in, maintenance money going out, and it's a less of a nightmare to look at. Because he has like $25 for this paint can, $30 for all these little things in the main revolving account. So his request was to just basically convert the non-revolving to a revolving fund. What that allows him to do is the fees he collects from other organizations and whatnot can go into this revolving fund for the maintenance, and then he knows what that money is. It's not getting chewed up for other things, and it helps to provide a little bit of delineation for him between those accounts. I know that that's very much a finance question, so if you have any questions on that, please chime in.
So that's actually the description of Article 13 is where we're going to do the recreation revolving account, which is great. Thank you for that. You got every detail there.
What's the 11 then? Is this moving money into that account? Is that what it is?
This is part, okay. This is the excise money for the short-term rentals.
No, that was 10.
11 is the revolving fund for the
11.
city.
Well, it's
Yeah.
fixing the maximum amount.
Do you have the same sheet we got?
What I'm looking at. No, I was looking at.
But the limit isn't in there yet. Is there some reason why we haven't put that in there yet?
Yeah, 11 looks at 12, just for the field maintenance, whereas 12 is setting those limits for the other revolving
Yeah.
funds that are already up.
Yeah.
Okay, so the 11 is, I'm sorry. I apologize, I was looking at one that was a bit different. So the 11 is the new revolving fund. And then annually, Article 12 has to be presented to set the limits of spending. So 12 is a constant, voted every year. Article 11 we're adding in the recreation field maintenance account.
Now, we don't currently have a limit on that.
Oh,
Is that
the
because we haven't talked to Jim about what a reasonable limit would be?
I
or-
had estimated it at 30,000 below.
Oh, okay, I see down there.
So that number could go up.
Oh, so we don't set the limit up in 11, we set the limit with the rest of them in 12.
I think so. I don't think the limit, this isn't, this box is gonna change a little bit. It'll have all the elements of, where is it? It got crossed up on the warrant. There are 4 things you have to notate when you open up a new account, a new revolving account, and they are in the warrant for article, yeah, this is crossed up too, because that says Article 13 and it's 11. So it's so it'll identify that the purpose is recreational fields, that we will be the source of revenue will be field use receipts. The body operating it will be the Recreation Committee, and will ask for monthly reporting of receipts and expenditures to the accountant. And that's what has to be identified for the new revolving account.
So in Article 11, we aren't going to add the fiscal year expenditure. Like, we could almost cross that off and say we're just setting up the fund. And in the next article, if we set up the fund, we add in the amount.
Correct.
Sounds
So
right.
really, we shouldn't have that part there.
The X.
And that language in 11 needs to work.
And are
Because
you
we're not going
looking
to
at,
fix the maximum amount, unless we fix it up there and don't put it down there.
either way, we need to have the estimate, and I used 30,000 based on a balance, they've been going, it's been between 32,000 and 27,000.
So do we just want to put 30 in the first one
And then take
and
the
not
next
take it
one.
out of the second one so it's not redundant? But then the next year it's going to have to be in that list.
Yeah,
like-
we're not gonna,
Personally, I like it the way it is, where we establish it in 11 and then we set the limit like everything else in 12.
yeah,
Okay.
Mostly because then next year when we go to do this again and we copy and paste this list over,
all in one place.
it's not missed. That's primarily my motivation there. But to your point, we could do it
But
either
we,
way.
so we, basically the question's going to be like, how much is it? And then we'll have to say, look at Article 12. If we vote that, that's how much the limit is.
I doubt anyone is going to know or care to ask what the limit is when we get to Article 11. I'd be very surprised if that's a question that.
Well, if there's something, if there's a
If there's an empty box,
Now you
if there's an empty box
space
there,
is there that's not
someone will
filled in,
ask.
then we aren't going to ask. That's what I'm
Someone will
saying.
ask.
So yeah,
I-
we're gonna take
yeah.
that out though.
take the box out.
I agree that
Take
if
the
you,
box
if
out.
you don't put it in 11, then yes, the box doesn't.
Okay, the box goes away in 11.
All right.
well, the box is gonna
Also,
change in
leaving
11.
that there,
Right.
but there's a box in Article 11 too that's empty, and that's the debate.
Yeah, it's just, people will ask, you know,
Where do the numbers?
So the 11, we're just saying that we're gonna fix the maximum amount. We're gonna set up this fund and set the maximum amount. And the next budget article, we actually set the maximum amount, as long as that passes. Otherwise, we take it out of the second one.
we vote to
Right.
fix the maximum amount.
You actually make a good point, which
Yeah,
is that
we actually
if,
say fix the
if
maximum
the-
amount.
if 11 doesn't pass, we can't set the limit in 12
Well, we just-
on something that didn't pass.
We just take it out.
So in that case, I actually kind of feel like it would be better.
We can take
to
an amendment
leave it-
from the floor and say, take out the thing we just didn't pass.
Or we just do it in 11, because then if 11 doesn't pass, it just doesn't
We
pass.
just gotta remember not, yeah, I
Wait,
think it's
wait, wait.
better to do it in 11.
Yeah, if we're saying
yeah.
we're moving to fix the maximum amount, we should say the amount, right?
So
So,
it's back in.
so I would,
Alright, so it's back in.
And then I would take it out of, I'd probably take, I don't know, I guess
The person has to
both.
copy and paste efficiently.
We're just gonna copy and paste and then add,
or-
don't forget our other revolving
or
fund.
we
can have it in both.
cross out the 30, or we remove the 30,000 from 12, leave the line item in there and
Yeah,
say
yeah.
see above or established above or something like that, so we
Yeah.
know it's there,
Yeah, in
but
Article
it's
11.
not
Or
actually.
TBA or whatever, you know.
Yeah,
If
or
that,
same as above, or however the lawyer decides.
Well, because it's not an authorized revolving funds yet. It's
Yeah,
not like, it's not literally, it's gonna be seconds away, but it's not an authorized fund yet when they move it.
and
So-
again, for some reason the town votes that down, I'd much rather have it be vote proof than have to go and make an amendment on the floor to remove that from there. And then again, we have a.
And if we can't vote, we can't get rid of it, then how do we move forward and?
And it's a lot messier that way, so
Yeah.
I'd like it
Chicken
just
and egg
being,
issue.
11
It's like
passes
chicken and
or 11
egg
doesn't
issue right
pass. My only
Chicken and egg
question,
issues are not what we're solving tonight.
so my only question for you, Becky, is just, do we want 30,000 for the number or do we want to go higher? my thinking is, this is a limit. It doesn't mean that, like, we're not appropriating money for him. We're not saying, here's more money. We're saying, how much is the most you can spend in a year? What happened if we end up with some kind of regional, championship that wants to use our fields, and they're willing to spend $10,000 to do it?
Then they have to get it back to the town, because the town has other uses for it.
But
That's all the revolving funds, they can still keep
But
that
no, but
30,000.
if Jim, let's say Jim has to get 6 more porta potties for 3 weeks for that tournament, the money's there to pay for it because the money comes in, but he's been capped at $30,000 of expenditures out of that account. I guess what I'm saying is that,
That's at the end of the year. So as long as he gets the porta potties and spends it in the same year, it can go up to 50,000. It just can't, at the end of the year, he only has 30,000.
is that what that?
No, it's,
Isn't that what
That's a
that
total
means?
spending.
No, that's the most,
That's
that's the
spending.
maximum outlay out of that account.
Spend in a year.
And that's all I'm saying, is just that, like,
But I agree.
and the balance could be 100.
I know,
right?
I have found a number of things that are over.
I did not know that we had one.
yeah, I mean, I understand there being limits, because you don't necessarily want one department to like, kind of like go off the reservation and raise a bunch of money and spend a bunch of money outside of the purview of the finance committee and the select board committee, so putting limits on there makes sense. I'm just concerned specifically about this one, is if you're saying in the past it's been 27 to 33, what if it's 33 next year, and at the end of the year,
So
he gets
maybe
a
we
point
should
where
get
he
40
can't.
with
That's all I'm saying, is that, like, I don't see any downside to making that number a chunk higher than what he needs.
Okay, let's do 40.
Does that work for everybody?
We're so,
But these numbers come from the last 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, or they adjust for inflation? I mean, how do you keep these limits?
Some of these numbers have been here for 10 or 20 years.
Right, it's a long time, yeah.
But we're going back through and looking at them, that's all we can do. And-
But these roll, these roll, right, every year, it's just,
Yeah.
whatever's in it just grows, just roll, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's clear, it's not a limit.
unless we
on-
hear from the wiring inspector that it needs to be higher, then we will,
Keep it where it is
Right.
until you hear it.
Yeah, and the electrical inspector, yeah. I'm sorry, the plumbing inspector is, I think it was closer to 3,000 last year, so it was under. They vary from year to year, you just have to check them all the time.
Well,
I just
I guess
think
my-
interesting, wiring and plumbing are so different.
I think it's because of all the solar activity
Oh, yeah.
is driving it.
I guess my big question is, if we have arbitrary limits, and we have accounts that are going over them, why do the limits even exist in the first place? If there's no teeth behind them, if it's not like, there's obviously no, like, legal procedure that kicks in in November when they've hit their max to stop them from doing so, they just continue to spend.
If they have balance.
And then you go look next year and go, oh, they were over. So if this is all just sort of arbitrary, why is there even a limit? I mean,
It's statutory and to try to keep
The
things
reason.
within range.
okay, I mean,
if it's
You know,
statutory,
and-
we're gonna have a limit, because it's the law.
It's the law.
Mama said so.
that's a perfectly fine answer.
I'm sorry.
So I guess maybe we don't necessarily need to.
But I wanted to also explain, we were talking, this is a second recreation account.
Yes.
But as you notice, there's not another recreation account on the list. And so we had a fun time figuring that out. And luckily, when Margaret was here, she said, there used to be a special revolving account only for recreation. And so it turns out, in 1981, Sunderland adopted the recreation account under 53D, not 53E and a half. 53E and a half came later. So, and that has quite a low spending limit. So it's important, we might have to open up another recreation account as well. But for now, we can start it moving the overage of expenses into this account.
Okay.
To get it under
Okay.
control, even though it's arbitrary.
So can
It's
we
still
just-
statute.
Can you just answer, so then of all these different accounts, are there examples of them exceeding their spending limits set here in previous years?
We'd have to look,
I'd have to check.
yeah.
The only one I know about is the one from 1981.
What's
The
it
other
called?
one, so it's called the revolving fund for field maintenance, but it's not just for field maintenance.
Or
It
take
can,
any
it
action.
could be like porta potties, and it could be,
Right.
so is it
Yeah.
really field maintenance, or is it
Is
for
it just-
recreation activities around? Like,
So-
you know what I mean? Like, we should call it what it does.
And to be fair, I might have chosen a bad example of using the porta potties for that, because I'm not sure that he would actually be including that in that. I believe it's supposed to be for maintenance specifically, and I think you're right.
So
that
if you
the
have a
porta
big
potties don't.
tournament, you get a lot of money for them using it, and then you fix the fields with that money.
Yeah, they tear up the
That's
field
all we
because
can do
they're,
with it.
I think that's the case.
We'll check that. We should
We can
check that.
certainly,
So I know you established a revolving fund, but it has to be very specific. Like we had that issue when we established the community room fund. So we raised money, if people sometimes pay us fees for using the community room, it can only be used for the community room, which is kind of like, it's very limited, but apparently that's the way they're done.
What if it was field expenses? Because that could include, we're having a lot of people here, they're gonna pay us a lot of money, so we're gonna get porta potties.
Is that the maintenance for?
No, because field maintenance doesn't sound like you could use
No,
porta.
no, the
No, no.
main recreation.
Oh, the main one that we
One
think is
that's already
small?
set up.
Yeah,
yeah, and so that I think, again, I think I chose a bad example. Pretend that it was a muddy soccer tournament and they tear up the field, and we end up deciding we need to do an extra reseeding that year, but we have $3,000 that they paid us for this giant soccer tournament.
So what you're saying is 30,000 might have been fine, because there's no porta potties.
30,000 might have been fine, but just for me, what I'm looking at is, if we're looking at, if we're looking at our averages,
The trailers, we need to.
if we're looking at our averages being 27 to 33,
Again,
that's what I'm looking at, is saying that even outside of a fantastic year or something, outside
And we're okay
happens.
with calling it field maintenance, because that's really all it can be used for, to
Yeah.
Lynn's point.
And that's what he had asked for, was for one, specifically for field maintenance. So, sounds like we're okay with 40 on that. The rest of them, those limits, they are what they are, no one's asking us to change them, and so, at least for this year, we'll just
I
go with
think we'll
those.
need to review the plumbing inspector for next year, because we have a new, we have 2 new plumbing inspectors now, so the activity could pick up.
Yes, so, that's more of a takeaway for our off-season discussions is, do we wanna revisit these? Do we wanna talk to each individual, the people who manage each of these accounts and say, is this working for you? What do your numbers look like? That kind of thing, but we don't need to deal with that between now and town meeting, so. All right, so that was 12. What do we got next? 13.
Land recognition.
So this is the land acknowledgement. We had a representative come in from the Sunderland Human Rights Commission, I believe is their title, asking us to support, asking the select board to support this land acknowledgement. They also did their due diligence to get it on the docket, but they did ask us.
This one does not have a finance committee recommendation, because it's not one.
Right.
That is correct.
And neither is the next one,
Yeah. Yeah, so both of these are citizen petitions.
okay?
I mean, I don't see a reason why you necessarily
I
couldn't.
think she's not asking for nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
Saving money.
So in an effort to try to keep things moving tonight, because I know we have a lot of stuff to talk about, I'm not gonna touch on those because those don't really affect you.
And the,
And
yeah,
the
they
consent
don't have
articles
to
are not
vote.
yet.
Yeah. And they're welcome to read them if you want, but we're gonna move on to Article
Yeah.
15. So the Article 15 through 20, these are our consent articles. These basically are the town giving the different departments in town the authority to do our jobs. Is there anything that you want to go over on those, Becky, or you gonna just?
They should be same as last year, and Finance Committee does not have to vote them.
So we just vote, we don't have to vote 15 through 20 inclusive, just not on each one?
I don't think you vote on them at all.
You don't have to vote on them at
So
all.
then we should take it off on,
It says right there, finance committee recommendation to.
like, do we vote on all 5 of them together?
Yeah.
15 through 20,
Need
you
a
don't
finance
have,
committee to recommend.
It says finance committee recommendation to consider.
Okay.
Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't
I
you?
think like-
yeah, because it's,
It's
I mean,
money.
they're
yeah, vote on them.
But we
serious.
vote on all of them as a group rather than
I think
individually.
so.
Yes.
I would say, yeah.
That's what we've done as the select board, is we voted on 15 or whatever those numbers happen to be that year as a slate.
1920.
So how does that work? You,
Well, it sounds like the select board writes on each one, and then we wrote on just the whole ballot, the whole thing together.
Maybe.
okay.
So like, if you guys didn't like one of them, you could like,
Because
not.
the select board,
Or
so it
submitted
just,
by Select board recommendation, select board recommendation, submit, okay. That's
That
what
sounds like a
works.
Wendy question.
okay.
Yeah,
I mean, I would probably remove the select board recommendation from the individual ones and leave that up top. of the
Yes,
finance
that's-
committee,
it's
And just
duplicated.
have the submitted by.
yeah.
Yep.
I don't know why you'd have it for each one.
I mean, the only reason I could see is if for some reason the select board didn't want to recommend one of them, but
We
I
recommend.
mean, this is the most basic stuff in town. This is
We
like
submitted
the
5
town
out of
run.
6 of them.
I would not imagine a scenario in which one of us would be like, no, we don't want there to be a treasurer this year. Like that doesn't.
Yeah,
I
that
don't
would
think
not
so.
be.
I am
So
on
remove
board
the
with it
select board
being,
recommendation.
Okay,
on
so
each
I'll
one,
get
so
rid
it's
of them,
consistent.
all
Not
there.
that it matters.
just have that top line with the select board and finance. All of
And
them.
that's it.
And,
That's it, right?
yeah, and the final thing is the vote, and that's,
Is there another page for that?
Either we all vote for all of them, or we all vote
it's
for
there,
them
it's
individually.
there. Keep flipping.
All right, I think that's it. That's all I got, I think.
No, it's, if you turn the whole.
Oh,
So what's after 20? I have nothing after 20.
yeah.
That's the last of the consents are always the last that we do.
I didn't get, oh, we do this too?
And then we do also, on the last page of our warrant, we have the list of the offices that are being run this year. Again, this isn't really a financial thing, but just for anyone who's listening, this year we have assessor's office, 1 position for 3 years, select board, 1 position for 3 years, board of health, 1 position for 3 years, library trustee, 3 positions for 3 years, moderator, 1 position for 1 year, planning board, 1 position for 5 years, Riverside Cemetery, 1 position for 3 years, Sunderland Elementary School Committee, 1 position for 3 years, town clerk, 1 position for 3 years, and town park trustee, 1 position for 3 years. And I believe that there's a Frontier School Committee member also. And by that, I
Is
know.
that, the Frontier School Committee
separate
separate,
from
and
the-
it needs to be listed here and it's not?
Yes.
It is separate.
It is separate, and I know we're filling it because I heavily pressured the person who got nominated to take the position, so.
Was there
Well, the
not
school
one?
committee's not on here either.
The
Yes,
school
it's
committee is.
Sunderland.
The elementary school committee is the third from the bottom.
Third
It's just
from
that
the
the
bottom.
Frontier
Oh,
needs to be
okay.
spiked out separately, because that is a separate position.
And is it a 3-year appointment?
It's a 3-year appointment, 1 position. It should be the same as the elementary school, just different. And I believe that's all of them. I don't see anything else missing there. Any questions or discussion on those? Pretty standard, alrighty?
I would just have Wendy look at that list to make sure we're not missing
Yeah.
something from
Yes,
the
that would be it.
caucus.
Wendy,
She has that
Wendy
list,
she did the warrant.
but
She
got-
put in
forgot to
I put in my articles and then sent them back to her, but this is her first draft.
Yeah, so just, but yeah, I would agree, if you missed one, have her definitely double check
Yeah.
to make sure that the rest of the
Yeah.
list is accurate. All right, I mean, the rest of this is just, signature stuff, nothing that we need to go over necessarily. Any questions on the warrant article from either board? All right, I see Crystal shaking her head no, so that's a good sign. Dan,
Who's
anything?
the chair of the CPA, if we wanted to get,
Megan?
Megan.
King, or Quinn?
I
Yeah.
believe that is also listed on our website as well. I believe. All right,
and the capital committee is you.
I'm the chair, yeah. Which is a great segue to move into our next article of new business, which is our capital stabilization. And that would be this sheet here, for those of you who have 1,000 sheets in front of you. So these are the requests that we received this year. We are meeting tomorrow night as a group to go over this one last time. So at this point, we don't actually have a capital stabilization recommendation for the select board to vote on, but we will most likely out after tomorrow for next Monday to have the select board vote on that. That being said, I'd be very surprised if it's not this list. So we're gonna go through it. So the first one we have is the safety complex is asking for booking room video. They have an old video system. The chief came in and told us about this. I believe that you guys were here for that a couple of times ago. And so 14,500 is the dollar amount to upgrade to new Wi-Fi cameras and system and whatnot. So that's that there. Highway has 4 on here. 3 of these, as mentioned before, are lease payments on equipment that we've already purchased in the past. We have a backhoe, we have a truck and a loader. So that's 34,000, 40,000, and 50,000. And then the only new item on here is $30,000 for an asphalt roller and small tractor. So the total highway is 154, 615, 30. Moving on to the library, we have 2 requests from the library. One is activity room door replacement. They wanted to replace it to, I believe, match the other style door they have on the other room.
That's for safety.
Thank you for safety, yep. And that's $15,000. And then $37,000 is for mini splits, which just a reminder to everybody that while we do spend all of that money out the door up front, a chunk of that comes back in the form of rebates.
That's not the library, that's this elementary school. Library is.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is air handling.
That's for their restroom floors, doors, not the library.
Oh,
We
gotcha.
won't get any money back for the library. But we will get a working door, so that's good.
Fair enough.
No, but we're
I was
talking
looking at
about
the
mini
second
splits.
second line
session.
item is the, it
Their
says,
HVAC request.
Oh, the HVAC will get money back?
No.
No.
School.
No.
no,
No library gets any
yeah,
money.
I had my HVAC projects mixed up, thank you.
Well, there are doors in both of them, so.
Yes. All right, and then, for admin,
Before we go on the
Yep.
library, I spoke with Catherine. As you recall, there were a couple items open from the past on the capital list for the library. There was a $42,500 item that's never been touched from 2 years ago. There's a $11,000 for the school, but the $14,500 for the library. Catherine said if we keep this $37,000 for the HVAC system, then we'll take back the $14,500. She's approved that, so we're gonna,
and just to confirm, the $37,000, that's the money that's, we appropriate every year for repairs on the HVAC system?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just
So out
wanted to
of
make sure.
18, 20 units, they basically do 2 every year.
Okay.
Because
And-
on average, a couple break every year.
yeah.
But then
And-
sometimes they don't, and we don't use it, and then. so
There's a
we don't need it.
$15,000 currently in this budget that they have used about $10,000 of.
She's got some outstanding bills on that.
Yeah. Well, because it was about 5 or 6, so I'm hoping she got those covered. But she was going to let me know. But the 14,000 is good news for the capital reserve account.
Wonderful. All right, next up we have under admin, Vadar software, $30,920, and it's saying it will be handled in the budget.
Yes, the point software that that we were using for our financial statements had a $12,000 a year, is it 12,000? Yeah, it's a $12,000 a year service contract. The total package to pay for Vadar over a 6-year period is $9,600. So we are able to, a year, so we still are able to cover what we need to, have a couple $1,000s left, and we're paying off Vadar. Point was just excessively expensive on servicing.
Okay.
So we don't have to have it paid through capital or free cash.
That's good to know. All right, and then our last chunk is the school. So this is where those mini splits that I was thinking were for the library come in. And so that's $97,500 for mini splits phase 2 at the school. And then we have 2 items for the restrooms. One is replace restroom floors near the library, and the other is to replace the toilet partitions in that same restroom near the library. Those are each $16,000, and the total school is $129,500. All those requests together is $350,615.30, and just a reminder that $420,100 and change is our appropriation for that account. So that leaves us with the approximately $70,000 that we had discussed earlier as being either left in there for the future, or depending on how our conversations with DOR and whatnot go, could potentially be unfortunately gobbled up by the General Stabilization Fund, not transferring that funds in. All right, any questions on any of these
So just the
items?
school, the 97, this is phase 2, this is the last phase, right?
I believe
I think they
so.
did half of them already.
I believe you're correct.
Yeah,
that
I
this
think
is the
it's
last of them.
phase 2 of 2, yeah.
That is
I
my
hope so at that price.
Well, given it's 10 classrooms, there's not that many classrooms.
No, I'm pretty sure this is
But it's
the,
got some other offices in there too. Okay.
and that item will ostensibly, assuming that the federal government doesn't get rid of the program between now and when we collect it, we should potentially get a good chunk of that back. 30-ish something $1,000 out of that should be coming back our way. And we've had conversations with the capital planning committee about making sure that any of those rebate monies that we get on capital funds goes back into the capital account, because that's where that money is supposed to be going, and we want to make sure it does. Great. Any other questions on the capital budget?
Just two real quick ones. One on the highway leases, it'd be helpful, I know you all probably know this, to say like year 3 of what, just so that we can start to see when those will fall off, but very minor. And
I believe all 3 of them are 5 years leases.
that's gonna be my guess. But,
Yeah.
and then,
One's a 6.
Okay. We'll have to double check that for you, Leo.
it doesn't, like, this sounds great. The 420 and change, that's the capital stabilization number. How does that evolve year to year? Does that go up by a certain amount?
Yep,
Is
so
that-
we can increase that by the same 2.5%. The select board every year votes to do so, which, unless there's a real
Unless there's no
strong
need for
reason.
capital stabilizations in the future.
Yeah,
This
which,
plenty you need.
give me a year where we don't need the money and I'll have a great year. So the short answer is that $100,000 was the original override. That went up by 2.5% for a bunch of years. That got to 224,000 and change. At that point, we added another 375 the override, which brought up to, well, 375 plus a little bit to get to exactly $400,000 or, anyway, $400,000 was that first year. And then last year with the 409 with 2.5%, and then this year's with the 420 with that.
So even though we didn't actually bill out last year, we still got the increment of the increase?
Yes, yeah.
We successfully voted
I-
the town. The town appropriated it, we just didn't collect it.
And
So
then,
yeah,
is the percent increase tied to the general levy increase? Can they be different, or
they can be different. We vote them separately, but they, without an override, they're capped at 2.5%. And again, I would have a very hard time not increasing that by 2.5% every year, because that's just inflation right there. It's not even inflation, to be honest. That's just trying to keep up with inflation every year so that we have the same effective buying power year to year in the capital account than we did.
Well, it's depreciation too, it's like our old town was, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
making sure we're.
I mean, and I'd love 2.5% to be the increase we're looking at, but what we're looking at really is over a 3-year period, items are doubling in price. So it's the least we can do at this point. That's all we can do. All right, any other questions on capital? Beautiful. All righty, next up on our,
Can I ask one quick question? So the next thing is select board thing, so we would have, we might want to get rid of the finance committee in a
Yeah,
second.
yeah.
But before we do that,
Mhm.
I just have a couple questions if we could have a discussion about conflict of interest, right? Because I did my training this week. So my husband gets $450 a year to be on the, or $550 a year. Does that mean I can't vote on the budget or that warrant article? Because that, as
I
finance
would
committee, do I
recuse- yeah,
abstain?
Yes, abstain from that article.
Because
where he gets money.
that vote didn't have the finance committee listed.
for which one?
Oh, no, it did. So this is the one, this is where Val abstains. And then the other question, that's an easy one.
Val, which number is that?
I think that's Article 2 on the warrants.
We have all of them
Yeah, I have to abstain too.
there. So 2 people abstain and we have 4 people.
That's still quorum, because it's abstentions, as long as you're here, as long as you vote, you're fine.
Okay.
I think, and I,
And someone's just gonna ask us, why did all these people abstain? It's because we're married to people who are rolling in the money and making $550 a year. So someone's gonna have to answer that, like, why did the finance committee abstain? It's conflict
Because
of
we took our
interest.
conflict of interest training.
I know, I took 2 of them
The
this
finance
week.
committee won't abstain, you 2 will abstain in the vote.
Correct.
Right,
It
in the
passes
vote,
202.
Right,
and
right,
finance committee was-
Right. Then the other question I had is that when I first joined the finance committee, it came up because I was on the library committee, a library trustee, whether I had to abstain on things that affected the library. And the whole budget has the library in it,
No, I don't think.
which seems like it'd be weird to abstain on that.
I don't think, because the same
I'm-
thing with school committee, and I checked with the state, and they said I
Okay.
could vote.
So I just abstain on Doug's 550, but I don't abstain on the whole budget.
so what I would suggest, and
Does
this
that
is just
make-
my suggestion, is just that you acknowledge that in public session on Wednesday or whenever is, I am voting on this, but be aware I have a potential conflict of interest. As long as you're open about
Because
that,
I'm
and
the
you make
library,
that
I'm the library
declaration,
trustees, I'm disclosing
um,
that I am part of this group that's
yeah.
overseeing this, part of this budget, okay?
you should be fine.
Yeah,
But yeah.
Okay,
I think it's the same, I specifically called them that, and they said, no, you're fine, you can go on the school committee. but-"
so when you vote on the budget, I'm gonna say I'm on library trustees, he's gonna say he's on the school committee, we all know that, and we're still gonna vote on it.
Yeah.
Okay,
And really, we get in trouble when things happen that we don't announce. Not when we say, yes, I have a conflict of interest and I'm still gonna go ahead and do it. That's for a large part fine. I mean, depending on how the conflict of interest is. But the problem is when you don't say anything and someone says, well, wait a minute, there's a conflict of interest there, then bad things happen. So certainly would rather get it in front of that than anything else. Yes.
I have an unrelated question. We talked about this last time, just on local revenues. There was a question about we'd be using kind of a flatline approach. You know, what can we do about that, or can they change? I see that the estimates are higher. How did we land at that number? Is that a new path we're tracking now, or what are we doing on local receipt revenue in terms of estimating budgets?
Okay, so on the local receipts, and I apologize for not going over that. The one thing I did do is I went through it and took a 7.5%. I included a 7.5% increase on all the revenue local receipts.
Okay.
So typically, so that's cutting into what we will get back at the end of the year in free cash.
Now, is that 7% above what you did already, or is that 7% because you hadn't changed it?
Well, typically, yeah, it was level from the prior year.
Mhm.
And then as we kept talking about coming up short, I checked out, I looked at what a 7.5, well, I looked at a 5 and a 10, but a 7.5 brought us, I think, $56,000. It was a little over $50,000, which I felt, given our situation, would be of great assistance at this point. It'll come out, it'll short our free cash the same amount next year, but it seemed like it was a small enough amount to.
Well, and given that every year we have more free cash, but then we transfer a bunch of it into the budget, and then we have more free cash and transfer a bunch into the budget, it's okay. Like, that doesn't actually, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. This is just being
Yeah.
honestly a little bit more honest with ourselves up front about what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
Do you know, and if this is something you don't have to top of your head, that's fine, but do you know what we had increased that amount in previous years, or has it been flat for a while?
It's been relatively level, but it hasn't been flat. It's been creeping up.
Okay. But not 7% most
Not
likely.
that much.
Okay. All right.
Like, for
I
example,
think it's,
the actuals we do have, which here on the sheet 23 to 24, which is what we usually have, that's what we have, went up, around 40,000, just for context, so
Okay.
55 is crazy.
Yeah, so that year probably was a 4.5%, 5% increase. This is a 7% increase, or something like that.
And so,
that's
but
not-
this treatment doesn't cause any issues with the way we had been treating it flat with the state. I know you said that towns can kind of do one thing or the other thing.
no, I think if you're, a small increment
Yeah.
is allowable.
Okay.
Either way. It's when you make a dramatic change, like if I had gone up, 100% and gone, they'd be like, what are you doing? Did your town, yeah. So the small increments are fine.
Any other questions from you before we let you all?
Just to clarify, we're gonna vote on Wednesday on everything that we can, and then wait or re-vote on anything that changes before next Monday quickly at the beginning of the meeting next Monday.
Yes, and we will make sure that you guys are, if you do need to do that, we'll make sure you're at the beginning of the thing so that you can get into your stuff.
And if we vote on the warrant article and it changes, it's not a big deal to re-vote, right?
Right.
So if we accidentally vote on something, then it changes.
You'd have to
just
re-vote.
But it's not a big deal to re-vote.
It's not a big deal, no.
Okay.
And it's posted?
You can vote extra, early and
It's
often.
posted every meeting Wednesday, and there's an agenda out there?
I think I did that. Yeah.
Is it 48 hours or 24 hours? What's-
40.
I hope it's there.
There was a
I
issue
tried
with
to
the
do it
date.
last Thursday.
Right, one said the date was the right, but the day of the week was wrong or something.
And that's out there, that's on the website, right? That's been posted. Every meeting Wednesday, and it's not hybrid, it's in person, we don't have to. Correct? Do you remember?
For the Wednesday
We
meeting.
don't have to have,
Right.
right? You can show up, and you're gonna be, you said you'll be open for it. so you'll be
Yeah,
key.
I'll be here. And we can meet in here if you want, or downstairs, wherever you want.
Perfect. Motion to adjourn.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that agenda's actually there. It doesn't show up on agendas on the website. It should say Wednesday, so it's April 9th. So it's not posted on the
Click that, maybe
website.
it's just a link, maybe it's the agenda.
I'm not sure what you're looking at.
No, it's,
So when you look on the website,
You're not seeing April 9th.
right,
And April 10th.
that's March.
Oh, man.
How much time do we have to have? 24 hours?
Yeah, I needed to do it at 6.
48, but
No, is it
I
48?
think.
48 or 24?
It's
48.
48.
But if we
But we're
post
short.
it, the moments, I mean, we.
Can we,
Can you,
can we meet, I mean, can we meet at 8:30? It's actually late for people.
yeah,
On
It is-
Wednesday?
yeah.
We'll fight.
But if we don't, we have to do a different day.
Then we have to do a different day.
let's continue this over email.
Well, we need to
Well,
tell
but
Becky right
that's
away.
We're supposed to get posted right now, and we're good to 8, and if,
I'm so sorry.
Because I can't do,
I should ask that at the beginning.
I can do Friday night. That's going to be a fun Friday night.
I can't do Friday night.
Yeah, I think we're set for when, we just have to try to.
So let's have Becky post it for as soon as possible.
Okay.
Right, I would say stop, go do it, right, post it right now.
What, for 8:30 on Wednesday?
Yeah,
8:30 on Wednesday?
Yeah, I think we have to, and that's.
yeah.
I gotta check with Mel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
We only have one more item on the agenda, and it should be a real quick one, so we're gonna blast through the 5 minutes we need to get through this one, and then we'll
Finance
adjourn.
committee, motion to adjourn?
Aye.
Aye.
For nothing, wonderful. Thank you
Thank
guys
you.
very much.
Thanks a lot.
We'll
Thank
talk
you,
to
guys.
soon. So to get Becky available to go do the posting, our last item is to, select board needs to vote on the town clerk's request
Yes.
for this, to approve early in-office voting from April 28th to May 1st. This is for our town elections. Any discussion necessary?
No. From me.
Crystal, anything from you? All right. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to approve the town clerk's request for in-office voting from April 28th to May 1st.
Make a motion to approve early in-office voting from April 28th to May 1st for the town clerk.
Second,
We have a motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
I, Crystal Dick Tremblay.
Aye, 3-0. Excellent. Alrighty, that's the last new business. We have no correspondence. Nobody is in the room or online for public comment. No executive session. Old business. I have no select board updates. Dan? Any
No,
select board updates?
nothing.
Crystal, any select board updates?
So we had South County EMS meeting last week. I don't know if you guys had a chance to look at, the goals the director had put together for the year. One of the goals was regarding getting accreditation through CAAS. The board of oversight decided that they didn't think that was a goal that, we wanted him to pursue.
Great.
So we've asked him to replace
That's
that
really a lot.
goal with a personal development type goal.
Great.
Whether it's a management type class, whether it's a conference, something like that. But, just didn't feel that accreditation was worth the money, because getting this particular accreditation doesn't allow you to charge more for an ambulance call, doesn't allow a change in reimbursement from Medicare, anything like that. It's just an accreditation, to kind of benchmark yourself against your peers, but there's so few people that, or so few ambulances that have this accreditation, not really sure it's a good benchmarking exercise and expense, so.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that, and I like the idea of moving it to more of a professional development kind of goal, so, great.
Thank you so much for that, Crystal, because I was concerned how expensive that could have been.
Yeah, and that was the thing, they're just getting accreditation, and if it gets you a better Medicare reimbursement, nice. But if there was just no real impact other than benchmarking exercise, and it's a lot of money, something like that.
Yep. No, I agree. Great, thank you. Anything else, Crystal?
No, we have to meet again, next week, to finish going through, we never made it through all of our agenda items, we've got another South County EMS meeting next week.
Great.
More to come.
We look forward to hearing it next Monday. Alrighty, town minister updates. Do you have anything for us that we didn't already
Just
cover?
quickly, I want to report that we've concluded negotiations with the police chief, and I'll be bringing forward his contract for the next meeting on what's our next meeting is the 14th of April.
And thank you, Dan, and thank you, Becky, for working on that. We appreciate the hard work on that. Wonderful. Anything else from you? Alrighty. At this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, we have a motion made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I, Crystal Greg Tremblay.
Alrighty, 3-0, 8:08 p.m. Thank you very much, and that gives you 22 minutes to go get that posted.